Even though hurricane season doesn't start until June 1st, we're kicking off National Hurricane Preparedness Week with today's Hurricane Prep press conference, so that's why we're here early. The safety of our citizens is our first priority, and Jefferson Parish is storm ready. Here with me today are several elected officials, mayors of our municipalities, so I'll introduce, first thank you to Shari, who was with us all last year, and Janie, I'm told, is here as well. Thank you from the Deaf Action Center. You will hear from our Council Chairman, Councilman Ricky Templet. He will be one of our speakers representing the Jefferson Parish Council. I want to thank Councilman Scott Walker for At-Large Division B for joining us today, as well as Mayor of Gretna, Belinda Constant, and the Mayor of Westwego, Mayor Robert Billiard. So thank you so much. We know your schedules are busy, but we appreciate you joining us here today. And then I will introduce the other speakers who are going to tell you about their organizations and the preparations that they are making to prepare for this hurricane season. We have been in close contact with all of our partner agencies you see here today to make sure we are in Jefferson Parish as prepared as possible. And this year you're going to see more people here. We have invited our communication partners, Cox, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, to also tell you about their preparations, because we know what we've seen is when people, God forbid, had to evacuate, or if we have to evacuate again, you want to make sure your electricity is back. You want to make sure gas stations, grocery stores are open. You want to make sure also now, with how we have changed our work, that you are connected to the internet. Obviously, for so many people who are working at home, that is a major decision, that your cell phone service is working. So really they are very critical in getting information to the people. So I want to thank all of our communication partners for being with us here. Based on the information we have as of now, it is predicted that the 2022 hurricane season will again be busier than normal. So it goes without saying that every storm is unpredictable. Every storm is different. It's important for us to prepare ahead of time. We are asking everyone to plan, prepare, and stay weather aware. Even though it is just the start of May, there are preparations, and you'll hear that we as an administration, as a council, and all of our partner agencies are doing. This is also the time for you to be doing the preparations with your family, and that is the point of this press conference. It is not, this is the time to start preparing for what we know in recent years has been a very busy hurricane season. There are things you can start doing now in May for your family. And I'll just go through a list that this is the time to do it. Things like getting your medications, prescriptions filled. You don't want to have to be doing that when a storm is bearing down on us. Get these things done. Flashlight, extra batteries, get your first aid kits together. Have the discussion with your family as to who is going to take care of who is going to take care of elderly relatives, who is going to worry about that neighbor on your street that you know has nobody else. These conversations need to happen. Learn your evacuation routes. 2 routes, depending on the way the storm's coming. You need 2 routes that you understand and know and are familiar with to leave the area. Your car should be in working condition coming into hurricane season. You do not, this is the time to get that done. We like to leave with cash. Have that cash now. There's no reason, because if a storm comes, everybody's going to be going to the ATM. Get these kind of things done now. Look at your documents at home. Make sure they're stored in Ziploc bags or waterproof plastic containers. And this is what we always tell people, but what we always want, and we know when weather starts getting bad in the springtime, is keep those catch basins clear in your neighborhood. Get in the habit of doing that. We as citizens put a lot of money in our drainage system. We have an incredible drainage system. We want the drainage system to just move the rainwater, nothing else. No other debris in there, so keep those clean. So, and then again, get your emergency supplies together, your food, your water, your batteries, your flashlights, all of those kind of things. And what we want to impress upon people is, if and when the time is necessary, stay in touch with us, stay in touch with all of your local officials. Right now you can get on the texting app that we have, the texting system. Text JP Alert to 888-777, or for our Spanish-speaking citizens, JP Noticias to 888-777. And we want you to stay informed with all your local media outlets for critical and up-to-date information if that's necessary. So again, we want to thank everyone for being here today as we work together to keep our citizens safe and informed during this hurricane season. Let's hope and pray that this is a quiet season for us, but since we don't control that, That's not something we can control. Let's do the things we can control, which is get prepared, okay? So with that, I'm going to call up our next speaker, Sheriff of Jefferson Parish, who is a happy man today. Right, Sheriff? With that millage passing and giving the resources to you. I think it's a testament to your agency that that vote was overwhelmingly in your favor, Sheriff. Sheriff Joseph Lapinto.
Thank you, Madam President. On, yeah. As always, the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office will be here during a storm, not a storm, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. All of our buildings and equipment from last year have been repaired. We're up and operational. This is not something that we prepped for just this week. In the Sheriff's Office, all of our equipment is actually tested on a weekly basis to make sure we have the ability to use it when we need it for whatever the emergency is. As the parish president said, I'd regret if I didn't mention it. This weekend was a very big election for the men and women of Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. They're always here for us, whether it's a hurricane or whether it's just a regular call for service. This was our opportunity to be there for them, and we were. 74% is not something that goes unnoticed by me. All the equipment in the world that we can operate during storms doesn't get operated if we don't have men and women to be able to operate it. Y'all stepped up this weekend. I know on behalf of myself and all the other men and women of the Sheriff's Office, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next, on behalf of our entire Jefferson Parish Council, who really works so well with us during storms, they have staff that go out. They are the extra eyes and ears that we have getting to those neighborhood issues quickly. So on behalf of the council, our council chairman, Ricky Template.
And thank you, Madam President. And it's such a beautiful day out here today. When you're going outside, the sun is shining. And this is the days we need to prepare for the future of hurricane season. The parish president and the council are making sure that the citizens are prepared. But we want you to know, and you will hear later on from some of our drainage departments and water departments and all, how prepared Jefferson Parish truly is to serve our citizens of Jefferson Parish. You know, we learn from each storm. And in 2020, there was 8 times Jefferson Parish was in the cone of error. And then we had Zeta. In 2021, we had Ida, which was basically a Category 5 hurricane bearing down on Jefferson Parish. We're proud to be able to say our 100-year protection protected most of the homes within Jefferson Parish because it was properly maintained and the parish was protected. But we have areas that are vulnerable that are outside of the Levee protective system. Lafite, Grand Isle, Crown Point, Barretary, and Lower Lafite that are still fighting to come back. Those areas, we're heeding some of the warnings for hurricane season for them. The Burrito Levee on Grand Isle still has 12 breaches that we're working closely with the Corps of Engineers and CPRA to address. And we're actually, most of the pumps in Lower Jefferson Parish that were inundated by floodwaters have been replaced or repaired. Jefferson Parish's pumping capability is almost at 100%. We have some pumps that are out for maintenance right now. Jefferson Parish is prepared to serve and protect the citizens of Jefferson Parish, and the council just wanted to let y'all know that. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our next speaker will be Joe Valiente, our Director of Emergency Management. Joe has been overseeing what we are doing on the administrative side, which is the after-action reports for Ida. Ida was such an incredible storm for us, took so many resources, and we are going through all of our departments, asking what worked well, what we could do better, and we'll be implementing some of those changes as well. So in addition to his regular work, Joe has really has been overseeing that effort for us, which has been a great effort for that. So Joe Valiente.
Thank you, Madam President, and good afternoon to everyone. So we just came back from the National Hurricane Conference in Orlando. I have some takeaways that I want to give out, and then I'll address the internal after-action meeting that we conducted and the report that is following it. So the National Hurricane Conference, there was a tremendous amount of emphasis on 2 areas. The fact that hurricanes are becoming more frequent and they're becoming more dangerous. Real quick, some stats here. For the 2021 hurricane season, there were 51 named storms. Both years they ran out of names. That is unprecedented. That had never happened before. There were 16 hurricanes that made landfall in the United States. from 2017, and 7 of those storms were major storms. Another stat, there have been more than Category 4 and 5 hurricanes have made landfall in the United States between 20 and 2021 than between 1963 and 2016. So we've had more Category 4 and 5 hurricanes make landfall since 2017 to date than occurred from 1963 to 2016. The risk and the threats of these hurricanes, we all understand it because we live in this area and we realize that they're real. But what's happening is that we have to come to the realization the probability that we're going to get hit has increased also with those threats. On top of that, the intensity of these storms are increasing. The barometric pressure inside of these storms are getting lower and lower, which means they're getting stronger and more intense. It's important that because of these stats, not to ignore the obvious, but to be prepared for an evacuation. We estimated that only 25% of the residents in Jefferson Parish evacuated for Ida, which left 75% of the residents still here. That really slows us down on the recovery process. That puts a huge strain on the Jefferson Parish Sheriff's Office. And of course, things like accessible food and gasoline became very scarce. We had long lines at the gas stations, frustrated people to the point on one occasion there was a homicide that occurred over who was where in line. These things can't help us. These things only hurt us and slow our recovery down. Please be prepared and evacuate as soon as possible when you're told to do so. I think it's important to note that in the after-action report that we conducted, we had every single department head involved, and we were able to identify a lot of our strengths and some of our weaknesses. So as a result of that, we've been working very closely with Sarah Babcock, and she'll expound on the progress that we're making on our shelter capabilities post-storm, which is actually will put us more in line with the universal sheltering plan put out by GOSEP in the state of Louisiana. We also, as a result of that, we are securing better emergency contracts for fuel, generators, and for various shelter supplies so that we can get them quicker, so that we can start the recovery quicker, and we can get these shelters open sooner so that we can start taking some of our residents back, take some pressure off the state. So with that, I just want to remind everyone that we have our website, jeffparish.net. You can go to the PIO tab, or you can go to the emergency management tab. There you can get all the information you need about hurricane preparation and tips that you'll need. I just want everybody to understand that Jefferson Parish has always been storm ready, but it's important that the residents must be storm ready also. We need their help. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Our next speaker is the Chief Administrative Assistant, Sarah Babcock, over Public Health. As I said, every storm is different. This last storm with Ida last year was the first time in modern history that we had to shelter several hundred people for several weeks after the storm. Not only shelter them initially right after the few days after the storm, but see that they're get out of the parish safely because we could not take care of them, and oversee their return to the parish and then the housing needs that we have. So again, this was a new thing that we did last year. Hopefully we'll not have to do it again, but Sarah was just very critical to us in our success on that effort. So Sarah Babcock.
Good afternoon. As Director Valiente mentioned, hurricanes are getting more intense. They're giving us less notice. The shifting around, which means you have less time to make decisions to evacuate, which is why it's so important to be prepared. We also saw in Hurricane Ida, not only was Lower Jefferson extremely devastated by the storm, but in Upper Jefferson, power outages and the lack of resources led to many more post-storm deaths than actual storm deaths. So we had one storm-related drowning last year when we had 6 other deaths, whether they were from heat or other medical conditions, shootings, other incidents like that. It's so important that people take these storms seriously and evacuate when at all possible. There are things that we can do as a parish to improve. So we're improving shelter capabilities. We're talking about how to speed up timelines, but there's a lot of things we cannot control. You know, we had record-breaking power restoration last time. If you are not able to live 2 weeks without power, you need to be able to evacuate pre-storm. If, you know, gas problems at gas stations and lack of fuel, those things are not going to change in the near future. And so people need to be prepared to live without those if you're staying behind. It's important for people, as the parish president mentioned, to gather medical supplies ahead of time, pick up your prescriptions, have copies of those, keep your prescriptions in their original containers. That will make it much easier when you need to get them refilled on the back end. If you are on dialysis or have other medical equipment, make sure you're talking to your healthcare providers so that you're prepared with what you need and where to get those services if you evacuate or end up in a shelter. Also things like glasses, hearing aids, your wheelchair, walker, or cane, and baby supplies. If you have a medical or mobility need where you cannot evacuate on your own and are going to need extra assistance, we ask that you call and register with emergency management. The phone number is 504-349-5360. We've already made contact with all individuals that we provided assistance to last year during Ida, but if you have not heard from us, please call in so that we know who you are and can provide extra assistance. As Director Valiente mentioned, we have been working to increase sheltering capabilities, so we've looked at new locations across the parish. We've been gathering more supplies and doing a lot more training with our staff. As you know, last year the Red Cross provided us with a lot of support when we were able to start sheltering here locally, and so we're better prepared to be able to do that on our own for this season. I also want to mention that COVID-19 remains fairly low in our community right now, but we continue to prepare in case there are new variants at the time of a hurricane, and we'll be able to make those arrangements in an evacuation or shelter. Finally, hurricane season can bring fear and concerns, especially those who had bad experiences in last year's storm. Mental health is a really serious concern this time of year. With you already have heat that exacerbates things, but also this season, the more we talk about it, the more concerned people may be. If you're in need of mental health support, the state has a Keep Calm line that is 1-866-310-7977, or you can call 211 to be connected with a mental health provider. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Our next two folks are from our Public Works Department, our Director of Public Works, Mark Drews. He is one of the busiest men when a storm comes. He's got water and sewer and drainage and street clearing and road lighting all under him. And he's a happy man as well. We want to thank everybody for approving our street light millage this weekend as well. And our Director of Drainage to go over all the preparation we're doing in terms of drainage, Mitch Terrio.
Thank you, Parish President. Simply put, Public Works is ready. At the beginning of the year, we started evaluating our facilities, testing all our equipment. Subsequent to that, we've already made the modifications necessary to our facilities, repaired or restored our equipment. So every system is operational that is inside and outside of the flood protection system. But more importantly, our major asset is our employees. Okay, they perform remarkably well in trying circumstances after Hurricane Ida. We have the ability to have 700 Public Works employees working the day after a storm, which is actually what we had to do for Hurricane Ida. Further, our superintendents, the majority of them have been around since Katrina. So they've seen just about everything. So they have the experience necessary to make quick, decisive, and competent decisions under duress. With regard to our individual systems, our water plants, East and West Bank, they both have safe houses on site where you can remotely operate the plants, so they have the ability to move into those in the event of a Category 4 or 5 storm. In addition, they have backup generators that can run every plant operation with a 5-day supply of fuel. When it comes to sewer, it's similar. We have 4 major treatment plants, 3 on the west bank, 1 on the east bank. All of those also have backup generators that can run the entire plant with a 5-day supply of fuel. In addition, we have 20 portable pumps, 15 portable generators we can immediately employ to our larger lift stations in the event of an outage, energy outage. And if we have an extensive outage, such as the one we had in Ida, where we actually had almost no power, period, for a week, we have the ability to bring in VACCON trucks to go to our smaller lift stations to drain them and bring that sewage to our treatment plants. With regard to streets and traffic, we have not only the equipment, but the materials and the manpower to immediately close roads the next day after a storm for safety purposes. We can begin the debris clear up to get our roads open, our major roads. We also can start immediately working on any traffic signals that are out. Similarly, our Parkways Division has the equipment and manpower to immediately start cutting trees to clear the roadways, and they have the expertise to coordinate with energy if there are power lines that are entangled in those trees. Then finally, drainage. I'm going to turn it over to the Drainage Director, who will give you that update. You're in good hands. He had 15 years as a design consultant before coming to the parish, where he's been here for 20 years, and he's seen just about every type of flooding event possible. So, Mitch?
Thank you, Mark, and I'll just reiterate what Mark said about having seasoned employees. Many times, in fact, most of the times, when I call the superintendent and have him, for instance, tell them to call the pump rental companies and find out what pumps they have, availability, and he'll tell me, I just did, they have, 3 8-inch pumps, 2 16s, they can be here in 2 days, I'm waiting on you to tell me to move or not. So things are definitely happen faster and more efficiently with employees like that. So a little bit about our system. We have 340 miles of open canals, 1,540 miles of subsurface drain lines, about 80,400 catch basins, 12,000 manholes on the drainage side of things. On the pump station side, we have 73 pump stations, 195 pumps in those stations. Currently, we have 4 pumps that are out of service. None of them are serious. 2 of them are planned maintenance. 2 of them are unplanned. 1 will be repaired within the next day or 2. The rest of them will be back in service well before the peak of hurricane season. So what we do, and I think I say this just about every year, we've had severe flooding, rain-causing events throughout every month of the year over history. So we are on our toes, and with the amount of infrastructure that I just read to you, we have to be on our toes on a daily basis to keep all of those pieces of equipment and infrastructure running optimally. So that's something that we do on a daily basis: cleaning catch basins, cleaning drain lines, repairing canal banks. On a weekly basis, we exercise every piece of equipment in the pump stations. We have contractors in place to assist us in just about every facet of our department, whether it's canal bank repair, drain line installation and cleaning. We have contract pump station work. We have contractors under contract to help us, in the event that we need them. And most storm hurricane events, we do have to call them in just because of the extent of the damage. As far as we're constantly improving our drainage system, we completed about $42 million worth of drainage improvements last year. We'll probably do about the same this year. That's pump station work in the pump stations and to the drainage system itself. As far as how the public can help, Parish President Lee Shing mentioned cleaning catch basins. That is probably the most significant thing that residents can do for us. With 80,400 of them, we can't always get to those within the next day or 2. So we ask anyone who's able-bodied and willing to do so, please do. If not, to please call us, and we'll get out there as soon as we can to take care of that. One last thing is also sometimes contractors, building houses, or even sometimes our contractors on parish projects, rather than dispose of properly the excess concrete they have in the truck, sometimes they'll wash it down into the drainage system. So we ask our residents to please let us know as soon as they see that happening. And most times we can get there in enough time before it sets up and get it cleaned out. So that's it.
Thank you, Midge. Thank you, Mark. Our next speakers are from Entergy, our Public Service Commissioner, Mr. Eric Skrmetta, as well as Patrick Hamby. I want to thank Entergy for being embedded with us at the EOC. Obviously, when a storm happens, We get contacted by our medical providers, our hospitals. There is an order of things that need to happen in time. Our own public works system is dependent on energy. So they're always here with us. They're always giving us updates, and we really appreciate that. So Mr. Skrmetta and Patrick Canby, please.
Thank you, President Sheng. You know, the Public Service Commission, many people understand how we function after the storm. We work as the oversight facility to make sure that the power gets restored. We also work with natural gas to make sure it's restored. We work and provide oversight over certain communication facilities. But what we also do is work throughout the year ahead of the storm to make sure that the companies are doing their best to prepare. Currently, Entergy Louisiana spends approximately $30 million a year on vegetation management. That's one of the biggest things that takes down power lines. And you'll constantly see them out cutting and trimming facilities to make sure that we minimize lines coming down during these times. We are currently working on other projects that are going to facilitate better stability of electricity resources in the region. Distributed energy project, which may or may not be in place for the hurricane season this year, but what it will do, it'll add the additional elements of an entire new power plant, but broken into pieces throughout the region, and that will work for not only providing for peaking power, but also when there is an emergency and there is power outages, particularly during hurricane season, that critical infrastructure, hospitals, grocery stores, other facilities like that, will be able to have electricity generated on site, and supplies and resources for the public will be available. We are also closely working with our delegation from the legislature for next session, since this session was in the inappropriate one to bring it, to provide for tax credits to gasoline station vendors, retail vendors, pharmacies, and other critical need folks, to where they can install generation systems so they can be up and running during facilities in this manner. So we are thinking that after the last couple of years and demonstrating the need for stabilizing resources for the public, that our legislators will work with us to establish this. Also, the legislature has provided us with authority to some degree over typical communications companies which we don't have regular jurisdiction over, cable and internet services, where they are providing us with storm plans, where they are providing us now to where they are saying what they are going to do in the aftermath of a storm. We are reviewing these plans and engaging with these companies to make sure that they are engaging in a way that are properly prepared to react and respond after the storm. Because, as we all know, the consumers want their electricity, they want their communications mechanisms. We are also moving forward to expand natural gas resources throughout this region, also into regions of western Louisiana. That is happening over the next few months, and that is going to provide better potential for backup systems throughout rural Louisiana. We are working in a very concerted effort to engage with our non-Louisiana power partners. And this came up during Ida, where we worked with companies to the east of us and engaged with them in a complete red tape cutting mechanism, and got power flowing into our region within a few days after the storm. And we linked it through the New Orleans Power Station as a switching station, and we began restoring power from east to west in a very rapid manner. And we intend to learn from these in tabletop exercises to where we can accelerate, because what we saw after Hurricane Ida was an exceptionally fast restoration, even though it may not seem that way to the general consumer. Considering the amount of damage that took place, it was a record-setting restoration. So we want you to know that the commission will be there to ensure that the companies are responsive, and we want to make sure you know that we are working on plans to provide greater stability resources during outages. We know the companies are enhancing their response by the increased addition of drone technology to find the down power lines. This reduces man hours, and especially through areas that are very difficult to find where power lines went down. More than half of the power lines in Jefferson Parish alone are served behind the houses and not on the streets. So it becomes difficult to find out where the difficulty or damage is. This utilization of drone technology and aftermath is a significant reduction in time and man hours. So we are going to be monitoring this. We will be working with companies aggressively and to ensure that we can respond in a way that's meaningful to the public. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Madam President, for your previous comments. It takes a team of not only the utility workers, but obviously the parish, the citizens that live within the parish, the communications companies. We all have to work together. So thank you again for that. The past years have been historic in many ways. Many people have touched on this, though. The increased number and the increased strength of natural disasters over the past 3 years, maybe 3 to 5 years, has really come to the forefront. So just for a couple of examples, we've had multiple tornadoes this year so far across the state. Last year we had the intense winter storm and freeze, Winter Storm Uri. It was so intense it got a name. Not to mention the handful of fierce hurricanes, historic hurricanes. Laura on the southwest side of the state, with Ida on the southeast side of the state, with many coupled there in the middle. So this new increased number and strength of these storms, it's calling for the need to be more resilient. So what we're doing to be more resilient as a company, Entergy Louisiana that is, we are putting back any equipment that was damaged and also proactively hardening our system in a targeted effort with bigger, stronger poles and towers. We're having more automation. We have advanced metering. We have automation out in the field too that will isolate and reduce the number and frequency of customer outages, not only during a storm, but on a daily basis. Another example, and this is an extreme example of hardening, but the tower that fell down in the Avondale area that crossed the Mississippi River over to Harahan, we are replacing that tower and the other one that did not fall, but however, it is a targeted effort. That is a national security area. The wires, when that tower fell down during Ida, closed off the Mississippi River for multiple days. Commerce, help, aid, all of the above. We worked with all the federal agencies to get that cleared as quickly as possible. So therefore, in that particular instance, we're going to have improved, strengthened towers to 100 that could withstand winds to 175 miles an hour, which is the strongest that we have. Ida was a historic storm. Our communities, our utilities, our partners, we all had a historic response. It was, and I've been with Entergy since August of 2005, so it was the fastest storm in my recollection that I remember having power restored that way, and that goes all the way back to Katrina. Now that being said, and this has been said too, I'm going to echo this, every storm is different. It just takes a couple of miles, 5, 10, 15 miles of a direction to the east or the west to have that path and that damages significantly change when a hurricane makes landfall. So just because Ida happened to hit Louisiana, focused mainly on the state in general, did not really do much damages to our neighboring states on the left and the right. That meant we had more access to the contract workers, that is the workers that don't work directly for Entergy but are located outside of the state. So we were able to pull in roughly 30,000 workers to achieve this historic restoration. What could happen and what has happened in the past, I just want to make sure everybody's aware, every storm is unique, meaning that we may have a broader path, a different path, the damages may be different, that pool of resources may be stretched and shared among other utilities, so that bar is a moving target. What we have out there for our communication purposes with our customers so they can prepare for a power outage event due to a storm would be for a Category 1 for 90% to be restored, would be up to 7 days of a power outage. That doesn't mean everybody's going to be out for 7 days. It means certain people may be out for 7 days, and you don't know where that's going to be. It's up to Mother Nature and where the path of that storm goes and what other tornadoes and other things come off of that storm. For a Category 2, that 90% number goes to 10 days. Category 3 would be 14 days, and that's about where we restored Hurricane Ida, which was closer to a Category 5, so that's the history there. But for a Category 4, prepare for up to 21 days of a power outage, and for, God forbid, a Category 5, which I hope we never have to endure, it would be over 21 days. So now is the time to dust off your restoration plans for your family. It hasn't had much time to collect dust, but please get your plan ready now. Go to the store, follow all the advice you've heard here today, and you can also go to our Entergy Storm Center site. That's the EnergyStormCenter.com. We have things that you can use to help prepare in a storm kit. We have generator safety tips. We also have how our restoration process works outlined on that site. So please go visit EnergyStormCenter.com. You can always follow us too on social media. We're on Twitter and Facebook, or we have an app too. So I know everyone wants a break. We want a break, a year off at least, but nonetheless, we have to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So stay safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Mr. Scremetta as well. Our next speakers are going to be a Director of West Bank Fire Services, Chief Don Robertson, as well as Mr. Robert Funk, the Chief of Administration for East Bank Consolidated Fire Department. So when we think fires, we think fires. Well, with Ida, you know, these folks had to fight fires by boat in Barataria when the bridge went out. They were also involved in search and rescue immediately after the storm. Getting involved in cooling stations and food distribution. So the work they do goes well beyond fire prevention and putting fires out during a storm. So, gentlemen.
Thank you, Madam President. As many of the people spoke here today, we are prepared. The Jefferson Parish Fire Services, including the East Bay Consolidated Fire Department, are prepared for the 2022 hurricane season. As Sheriff Pinto said, our guys daily do the checking of our equipment and all like that. Of course, we are preparing our rescue for water, as Parish President Lee Shank said. But we also want to talk about something that happened last year, the use of generators. People will stay home and use generators. If you're going to stay home and use a generator, you need to have a carbon monoxide detector in your house. It has to be like we preach for fire safety, a smoke detector. You have to have it. We lost lives last year due to carbon monoxide poisoning. If you have any questions, we will have a flyer on the Jefferson Parish website in reference to generator safety. If not, call your local fire department, and we will have the numbers on the website for the local fire departments on the West Bank and the East Bank, because it is vital that you put a carbon monoxide detector in your home if you are planning on using a generator, whether it be a portable generator or a full house generator. We also want to remind everyone to make sure you listen to the officials up here, okay? Because it will get to a time where the first responders will not be able to respond because of wind conditions. We have to protect our people also. So if you are planning to stay, okay, make sure you are prepared, just like everybody said, because there may be a time where emergency services will be bedded down until we can get out and look at the emergency. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Obviously, Ida was more of a wind event for us and not a water event, but that does not mean that the next storm isn't going to be a major water event for us. So our next speakers oversee what I call the perimeter defense of trying to keep out tidal surge, trying to prevent flooding, just making sure that we're able to pump water out and that water is not coming into the bowl that we live in. So the Regional Director of Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West, we have on the board Mr. Scott Burke and Nick Calley, and then the Regional Director of Flood Protection Authority East, Kelly Chandler. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Chang. My name is Scott Burke. I'm the board president of the Southeast Louisiana Flood Protection Authority West. I and a board of commissioners made up of engineers and residents of the West Bank of Orleans, and Jefferson Parish have immense confidence in our system. We saw during Hurricane Ida how well our system worked and how important it was to our community. During Hurricane Ida last year, the system protected approximately 210,000 residents and more than 8,300 non-residential structures on the west bank of Jefferson and Orleans Parish, representing more than $1.3 billion in property values. Following Hurricane Ida, we didn't take a break. We got right to work preparing for this season. We take our responsibility for the well-being of the people of the West Bank very serious, and it guides our attention to detail in every aspect of how we track weather and water events, how we communicate with federal, state, and local officials, and how we maintain and operate the system. We are ready for June 1st, and I will let Nick Calley, our regional director, tell you more about our preparations for hurricane season. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. As Scott said, I'm Nick Calley. I'm the Regional Director of the Flood Protection Authority West. The West Authority has responsibility for 47 miles of the perimeter hurricane system on the west bank of Orleans and Jefferson Parish, as well as the 33 miles of Mississippi River levee on the west bank. After the active 2021 season we had, including Hurricane Ida, the authority just began preparations right away for the 2022 season. This is a constant effort, inspecting the levees, our 68 land-based gates, and our 3 navigation sector gates, performing the maintenance and ensuring that they are ready for this season. Now, post-Ida inspection of the system confirms that although Ida was a major weather event, it tested the system, it worked as designed without sustaining any damage due to the hurricane. During Ida, no federal levee or flood wall were overtopped, and there was no significant damage to any flood protection features as a result of the storm. Our post-Ida inspections have found that our levees, gates, pumps are all in good condition, and the systems are functioning as designed and ready for the 2022 season. And this hurricane season, just as in past seasons, the Flood Authority West will carefully monitor the development of any storms, and in conjunction with our partners at the local, state, and federal level in order to prepare. The system has provided phenomenal protection to the residents of the West Bank. It is the best system that the West Bank has ever had, and we will continue to maintain it and ensure its longevity for the foreseeable future. So I want to thank the parish president for including us, and I'll be followed by Kelly Chandler.
Hey everyone, I'm Kelly Chandler. I'm the Regional Director of the Flood Protection Authority on the East Bank. We operate and maintain 192 miles of levees and flood walls on the east bank of the river in Jefferson, Orleans, and St. Bernard Parish. We also have 244 navigable land-based gates and 8 water-based gates. As many people up here have mentioned previously, we are ready for the hurricane season. We are completing our annual inspections along with the Corps of Engineers. That should be done this week. We are conducting tabletop exercises in preparation for this upcoming hurricane season. We will exercise all of our gates and our pump stations to make sure they are ready. And we will be ready. I want to remind everybody, like many of those have said, it's never too late to prepare. Make sure you have a plan, have your prescriptions filled, get supplies, have adequate insurance, and listen to your local government officials. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, this will be new for this press conference, and I want to thank all of the our partners. As you know, as I mentioned, communication is vital to your family, if you're an employee trying to get to work, if you're a business owner. So I really want to thank Cox, AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile for participating with us today and being partners with us in our community. So from Cox, Manager of Government Regulatory Affairs, we're going to have Ms. Christina Lagasse-Sarai, AT&T Louisiana Regional Director, Mr. Eric Jones, Verizon Response Team Manager, Mr. Trent Griggs, and then T-Mobile Emergency Response Team Deployment Manager, Nicole Hudnett.
Good afternoon. My name is Christina Lagasse, and I'm the Government Affairs Manager for Cox Communications. Cox works year-round to be prepared for the moments you need us most. When it comes to storm preparation and response, our work begins well before a storm makes landfall. Cox has a comprehensive business continuity plan with a formal structure in place to prepare and respond to natural and man-made disasters. We conduct simulated event activations throughout the year, as well as post-mortem briefings after each storm, to reflect on lessons learned and to make improvements to our storm recovery process. When severe weather hits, we know that it is more important than ever to stay connected. If our services are impacted by a hurricane, Cox service technicians are mobilized as soon as conditions allow to limit outages and to ensure services are restored as quickly as possible. A timely restoration period is always our goal. You've heard us say before that we follow power. We partner with our power companies to restore our services as our equipment is connected to the power poles. We also partner with parish officials to provide timely and accurate communications during the storm recovery process. With each storm, Cox activates a dedicated hurricane information hub on our website, cox.com, where customers can access safety tips, detailed FAQs, and service restoration updates. Cox also sends texts and email alerts to our customers to provide updates on our restoration efforts. The best way for customers to stay up to date during the storm recovery process is to sign up for text alerts on cox.com. For our customers who are viewing today's press conference, now is the time to make sure you're signed up for these alerts. As with every storm, our top priorities are the safety of our employees and reconnecting the communities we serve. We appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Cox is committed to working closely with the parish and other service providers to ensure we are well prepared for the 2022 hurricane season. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Jones, Regional Director for AT&T. Thank you, Madam President, for this opportunity to be here today and for AT&T to participate. I'd just like to take an opportunity today to let you know that AT&T is laser focused on ensuring communication is present and important now more than ever to our consumers. It becomes even more important during national disasters. That's why AT&T has invested millions of dollars to ensure that we're prepared. Even though our response is unmatched and unparalleled in the industry, we take these opportunities to learn, to grow, and to improve operations. Today, I'd just like to highlight a few items related to our recent investment in Louisiana, as well as our recent investment in our National Disaster Recovery Team. We are investing tens of millions of dollars to further harden our network in Louisiana against impacts of hurricanes and tropical storms by burying fiber optic infrastructure previously deployed on poles across some of the hardest hit areas during Hurricane Ida. During Ida, multiple fiber routes were severely damaged. As of March, we've replaced approximately 750,000 feet of aerial fiber with buried fiber along these severely impacted routes. And our team continues to work to bury an additional 1 million feet of fiber along routes that sustain moderate damage. When disaster strikes, we keep customers connected. Our network disaster recovery team is the largest and most advanced in the nation. In 2021, more than $650 million was invested in the U.S. and another $15 million invested internationally. The sole purpose is to rapidly restore communication to areas affected by disasters. Our NDR team maintains a fleet of equipment at more than 20 warehouses and staging yards, allowing for a rapid response across the entire country. We recently established our newest National Disaster Recovery Staging Yard in Kenner, Louisiana. Our NDR fleet of equipment includes hundreds of technology recovery and support trailers that can be quickly deployed, supporting our assets across the globe. Some examples of this are satellites on light trucks, satellite towers, cell towers on light vehicles, amphibious vehicles, as well as thousands of generators that we deploy to bring service up quickly in areas without commercial power. Again, AT&T is ready. Thank you for this opportunity today.
Thank you. I'm Trent Griggs, the Verizon Response Manager with Verizon. And I can tell you, with today's theme, Verizon, we like to prepare early, and that's a stage of events that take place. The community here it's storm impacting. We're starting to see rises in tornadoes, and these are all things that you don't have a lot of preparation for. So we try and be prepared all the time. So there's quite a few things that we're able to do for that preparation. And first of all, we continue to build new sites, add capacity, investing in newer technologies that make that user experience better and better as the needs continue to grow, especially from a data perspective. We're rolling out 5G technologies, Band C technologies that allow you to have very fast, high internet speeds at the time when you really need it, when a lot of users are on the network at that same time. Our switches are hardened. We all have our 2 switches that we have in this area are supported with our one fiber group, which means that we have the ability of, if we have a problem at one location, it can be redundant to another. So there's redundant paths to our network in case there is a problem. Everything is backed up with batteries, generators, from cell sites to buildings, and many components of our network are backed up in many different ways. And we stage mobile assets. So we have, we call it a barnyard full of animals, between goats and cows and satellite colts. And we're able to start moving these down south. We kind of take a look at the cone of uncertainty that normally starts here and makes that turn towards the Carolinas. We're able to stage these things in Dallas and Houston, where we can get them here with just in a couple of hours to be able to give relief and provide additional services to maintain continuity of operations. And from a day-to-day perspective, we meet with a lot of your public servants and your local leaders to understand the problems that you've had before and the problems that we can possibly help with. So there's a continuity of operations, that lessons that may be learned during these hurricanes or tornado scenarios that can happen with just a power outage of the day. And so some of those same technologies that Verizon used to bring our network up, we're able to help EOCs and police departments and rescue operations. Again, I'm Trent Griggs with Verizon Wireless.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Nicole Hudnett, and I am T-Mobile's Emergency Response Team Deployment Manager. I'd like to thank you all for having T-Mobile and our friends and our industry partners here today to talk to you about how we support your communities during hurricanes. We understand that communication is vital to people in order to stay connected to their loved ones. For first responders and public safety, they need service in order to deliver that crucial information and response to the community. And local businesses need to be able to restore quickly and reopen their businesses. This is why T-Mobile is committed to being here for Jefferson Parish and the state of Louisiana. We stand by, ready to support you. That commitment doesn't end when a hurricane comes through, when our services are in place or they're restored. We've helped teachers and students light up virtual learning after a hurricane. We've provided a generator for the community. And we provided mobile cell towers to first responders and public safety so that they could conduct recovery operations. Here's what we're doing to get ready for this year. Throughout the year, we conduct readiness exercises with our regional network and our disaster recovery teams, making sure the network's backup and our response systems are ready. We've equipped our network switches, our points of presence, and key sites with fixed backup generators. We collaborate with our weather partners to understand the storm's track and the projected path it's going to take and the severity. And then we can pre-stage our equipment, our satellite assets, our mobile cell towers, our people, just outside of that area, and be able to roll in quickly as soon as it's safe to do so. Our national operations centers are monitored 24/7 to monitor and manage network traffic. We've increased the size of our emergency response vehicles. We've added even more Wi-Fi and charging trailers. We've added more command centers and tow vehicles and other types of equipment. And finally, our emergency management and response teams are in contact with your emergency operations centers and EOCs to provide network service, to implement connectivity, and understand the areas of priority for restoration. In addition to these network preparations and the mobile resources, our key assets at T-Mobile are the people. These teams have gone out and they provided free devices with pre-lit service, Wi-Fi, chargers, and helped at cooling centers for residents. Before this hurricane season, I want to make sure that you download important apps like FEMA and the American Red Cross. And if you're a T-Mobile customer, follow us on @T-Mobile. There you can get important information and updates on the network before, during, and after a storm. And before I wrap up, let me again thank Jefferson Parish and everyone here today for sharing what you're doing ahead of the hurricane season. T-Mobile's #1 concern is for the safety and well-being of the community. Thank you.
Again, I want to thank Cox and AT&T and Verizon and T-Mobile for joining us at today's press conference. Thank you very much. So you've heard from a lot of our partner agencies in this community. It takes all of these systems to get a community back together after the storm. They're all preparing. We're all in this mode. We're doing it earlier. And again, that is the message we want to send to all of you and your families, is to start preparing now. We're up against a tougher enemy. We can see that in the past couple of years. And so early preparation is key. So with that, I can take any questions if anybody has any questions. Yes.
I have a question for everyone in time. Senior citizens homes and senior living apartments, with what happened with Ida, what pre-storm plans are being done to make sure that that doesn't happen?
I'm going to let Sarah handle that, but we've reached out to all of them. We were in communication with all of them last year. You know, there's legislation at the state right now trying to put some of those things into law, but I'm going to let Sarah come up and talk about our efforts there.
Sure. As you might remember, during Ida, we really proactively reached out to the senior living facilities and the nursing homes. We were in touch, myself personally was in touch with every nursing home every day, whether they had evacuated or they had stayed here in place. We were able to evacuate our 2 largest senior facilities very quickly, 2 or 3 days after the storm, and we will continue to do that. So we have been working with a number of partner agencies, including the Louisiana Department of Health, to work on some of the state legislation that's going through around nursing homes, but also better identify, make sure we have lists of every senior apartment building across the parish, and that not only do we know where they are, but we know their managers and their managers' cell phone numbers, and we'll be able to continue to check on those residents and address their needs.
Where will they go? Where's the plan? Where's the place that they will be brought?
So every nursing home has to have their own plans in place for that, and some of those are changing. A few of our nursing homes, as you may know, have shut down since Ida, so those are not a concern. For the senior apartment buildings, they would go into some of our shelters depending on the person's needs, whether that is a medical special needs shelter run by the state or a general population shelter here locally or outside the area. Okay.
Next question I have, we know trees are like one of the #1 killers during a storm. There are so many trees on the right of way and in people's yards that are termites that are about to fall. Where should people call if they have a tree now that they know is vulnerable during the storm? One on parish property that y'all will take care of.
Yeah, obviously, it's the Parkways Department, okay, which you can go online and easily get the exact number to call the Parkways Department. If you suspect that a tree has termite damage, or you just think that the tree is dying and is under distress, simply contact them and they will absolutely come out and check it out. And if they determine it needs to be taken down, they will do so.
Two more quick questions. There are a lot of people from Ida who still are in trailers, in lower JP, who still have problems. They're not back in their home and their roofs. There's so many blue roofs still going on. Any word to those people coming up with hurricane season who's still in a vulnerable position with their homes? A lot of renters I've talked to where landlords haven't fixed their homes yet.
Sure. So we have a number of departments who are continuing to work with the people who need housing, whether that is a team of us, myself included, our code enforcement, floodplain management, our chief administrative assistant over land use and development. We are all continuing to meet with FEMA multiple times a week, continuing to get people into housing, out of hotels, out of living with family. So we're continuing to do that. We are, the FEMA trailers themselves should be hardened for high winds. We are working right now with the state sheltering program to work on getting those trailers strapped down for this hurricane season. also making sure that everyone is given instructions. It's going to be really critical for people living in trailers, people whose repairs have not been done, to really consider evacuation, or at least going to stay with a friend in a low level storm, to make sure that they are safe. So if you are in a FEMA or state shelter, they've been given some clear instructions about what to do with that trailer, you know, and that they need to evacuate for those storms. We're also working with our Office of Community Development to make sure that we are continuing to work on the long-term housing options and looking for there'll be more federal funding coming down the line for people to move out of those trailers and into other longer-term housing.
To the cellular people, about how many, especially seniors who are still on 3G technology and medical devices, they're not going to be able to use their phones this summer during hurricane season because 3G is being turned off. Do you have an estimate of how many people in JP, how many people that could be possibly?
Don't have a number of that, but the 3G technology is still available through the
It will be through the hurricane season. And then on the flood 2.0, are we concerned, are there a lot of people in JP who are not going to have flood insurance because they can't afford to buy the new flood insurance for this?
So this question is about flood risk rating 2.0, which is of great concern to us. So this year, it's increased by 18%. That's the maximum that it can go up this year. Of course, where we live, that can be 18% for several years in a row. Obviously, that's compounded. So I don't think that this year, maybe people could, I'm not hearing about great numbers dropping their insurance this year, but it's something that we know will happen in year 3, 4, or 5. And, you know, certainly we don't want to have, to be over communities that are uninsured. So it is definitely a concern. We hope, you know, all of our federal delegation is on board. We need to get that law changed. It would be devastating to homeowners, to the home building community, to insurance professionals, absolutely devastating to us. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes. Feynman?
I did. I just wanted to see if you could cite a couple of specific examples of how y'all's preparation has changed this year, given Ida's. I mean, you mentioned some of them, but
I mean, it kind of gets down into the weeds, but we knew, you know, and this was just in terms of departments just relating to one another. I think we had to do a lot of new things this year, as I mentioned, sheltering. Actually, when Sarah came on board, I told her, you know, I feel like our sheltering needs, you know, I want you to get on top of that. So fortunately, Sarah, when did you start? Right before the storm, a couple of weeks before the storm. We had to quickly, you know, when you shelter people, what we had to quickly learn is you have to take care of wounds. You have to have showers that are ADA compliant. Can you bathe someone who's in a wheelchair? Prescriptions are out right away. Food, obviously, special dietary needs. And so luckily we had a lot of nonprofits come in and help us, but this was something that, you know, we were able to put together very quickly. So we're going to put more of that sort of in writing, just a little bit more established, if you will, where we're going to shelter people. Having to get people out and get people back in was something, so we relied on, you know, having to take care of them for longer until they could get into temporary housing. Some of our fuel needs, I mean, this is what I had to go through last year, you know, with the fuel scarcity we had. Second Harvest called me and needed fuel to get food, and I'm like, I can't, because the first responders need fuel. We're only filling up half a tank for our police department. I mean, it's just terrible decisions you have to make. So our food contracts, our council approved a different food contract. Little things like storing water throughout the parish in all of our departments, you know, that so they don't have to transport in the middle of a storm to get water. We're going to push things like that out. So small things and bigger things, Feynman, that we're going through. But we're just asking every director, how could we have done better? What did we do well? Going through that list and making those changes.
okay, and just as kind of a follow-up to that, I think Mark said 20 pumps, temporary pumps, and 15 generators to go to larger lift stations, plus vacuum trucks. How does that differ from last year? Because I know that was an issue last year in the days after
Okay, and that's what we always have on board, okay? But when we're talking about getting better, okay? It's short-term, long-term. I'll give you an example. Grand Isle, we have a 32-mile underwater line that had significant damage. This year, we're actually making a connection underground to Lafourche's system. So now we'll have a backup system that is not as susceptible to damage because of we have 25 valve platforms on that 32-mile line that actually come up out of the water, so we can control that system. So that's one thing that we're doing and will be done now. With regard to our sewer system, we need more backup generators, okay? Fortunately, we just passed the rate increase. We have a priority list of 30 generators we want to get in place at all our major lift stations. A couple of them are under construction already. We have 7 that should be completed design and out for bid no later than early 2023. But we plan to get all 30 of those constructed, okay? So that will, anything we can do to minimize our dependence on those portable pumps, those portable generators and those VACCON trucks. So that's in the work. Unfortunately, that's not a simple solution. It will take time, but we are working on it.
And, sorry, just last question. Last year, obviously, the water system, the number of trees down by Ida caused some problems with the water system. Sort of, what extra provisions are you laying in place next year or this year for a similar type of thing?
Again, that's somewhat beyond our control, except for, again, our Parkways Department, just like the question came up before, they're constantly, looking at trees every day, evaluating trees, okay? But again, where we live, our oak trees, they have shallow root systems. So you can have a perfectly good oak tree and it still comes down and it can still wrap up our lines, okay? All I can tell you, unfortunately, is we don't have as many trees now. But again, we're quite capable of assessing that quickly and restoring that system. Again, that was an unprecedented event. We actually were pumping water into the streets the first day on the East Bank. But by the second day, we had 20 PSI in the system because our staff knows how to set a perimeter, close valves so we can isolate breaks that we know, start fixing them, move the perimeter out. So by the second day, we were able to get 40 PSI, which is basically what I need to fight a fire. So we have that trained staff ready to go. We have, as Mitch had said, just for drainage, we have for sewer water. We have contractors that we bring in that help us in an event like that so we can respond quickly. So, I mean, it's just, we have to live with trees. There's nothing I can do about that as far as the trees, except to try to identify the trees that are problematic and get them down.
So I just wanted to add 2 things that you talked about, things that we're doing differently. One of them is that we've addressed our sheltering for our workforce. As Mark said earlier, we have over 700 people that stay behind, and that allows us to hit the street the very next day, which is important because we have to get that recovery initiated. And recoveries have a tendency to start off slow and they build momentum. But the more people we have here initially to hit the street on that first day, the quicker that momentum starts to move forward. So what we've been looking at, and we reached out to every director, we asked them, how many beds do you need? How many cots do you need? How much extra water do we have to order? We've expanded our emergency food contracts, and we've separated them up into 3 distinct areas in terms of for the Emergency Operations Center, for our field workers, which are the 700 people he was talking about, and for our shelters, so that we can push out the maximum amount of food and the quality of food out to those individuals so they can become more efficient. And because they're working 12, 16 hours a day in extreme heat and they're sleeping in cots, so we're going to look at better sheltering options for our workforce. That was the first thing. Second thing I want to mention is that the National Hurricane Conference, one of the things that they cautioned us on, not cautioned us, but encouraged us to do is improve our messaging, make our messaging more personal. We have a meeting tomorrow with Gretchen Hurt and her PIO staff, and we're going to sit down and we're going to discuss those best practices that they pushed out to us. And that, again, make it more personal, make it more real. The data from the Hurricane Center said that most people prepare, they just don't prepare fully. So they've given us some best practices to work on, and we're going to meet with our PIO staff, and we're going to try and implement those before June 1st.
Anybody else have questions? All right, thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today.